See me at all, but welcome to this channel. So glad you're here. We had technical difficulties, but in sales and in life, sometimes things can get a little bumpy and we still push through and make it happen. I'm very excited for my guest today, Jake Pusch, who is always pushing limits, pun intended, in tech sales and in life. Has a great underdog story. He didn't have tech sales experience, but he worked his way up, breaking in at a company like Oracle, hitting on a bunch of different other companies, and making his way to sales director at a cybersecurity company. I've learned so much from him, and he's made me better as a seller. So excited to dive in. Thank you guys for those of you who've showed up, and let's dive into it. Jake, how's your day going so far today?
It's going great, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. You look great, and you're the star of the show today. The audio is clear and looking crisp. And let's just dig right into it. Why do you love tech sales? Like, what opportunities has this career path opened up for you in your life?
Yeah, I love tech sales. You know, for me, I stumbled into it. I didn't really know what I wanted to do growing up. I knew I had one goal, right? I grew up in a small town, Pennsylvania, outside of Erie County, a small town called Union City, for those who care. And the one goal I had, Chris, was really just to get out of Union City. And I stumbled through college, you know, and ended up majoring in a psychology degree with a minor in law. Thought I might do law school, but you know, I ended up selling cell phones at a Verizon Wireless at a mall in Pittsburgh. And that's when I really started to understand sales and selling. And that was more B2C, of course. And then, you know, understanding the sales cycle and what it took to upgrade, you know, people from flip phones to smartphones. And then, you know, going over to enterprise rent-a-car was very humbling, and it was a, you know, business boot camp for me. So I learned, you know, without a business degree, I didn't necessarily understand profit, customer service, selling, marketing. I didn't understand any of that. So I don't know, shout out to fellow E-rackers in the house that might see this video, but yeah, it's business boot camp. And you know, once I got to Oracle, you know, after kind of stumbling my way through selling, I started to learn that, you know, technology was a huge part of my life. You know, that's when the iPhone 4, I think, had just come out, and, you know, doing transformational deals to help, you know, IT professionals transform their business and get them promoted, and start to network and work throughout an enterprise and different departments within those deals. But, you know, I started as an SDR, and, you know, apologies if I'm skipping through any of this. Please feel free to slow me down. It's been a lot of caffeine today.
Yeah, same here. I've had like 4 cups.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. And for those of you looking to break into selling and sales, there's a lot of coffee involved. Stay away from the Red Bull and Monster. I don't think that's good for you. But coffee's okay. Maybe do tea.
It's basically a blood type. I think it's nitro cold brew from Starbucks.
Ooh, see, that has a lot of caffeine.
Yeah, and it doesn't do much for me, so I have a problem. But anyways.
Well, that and we both go to Squatch Fitness and do a cold plunge.
Yeah, that's addictive. That's a good addiction to have, right? Tell me your thoughts on cold exposure therapy. How long have you been doing it? What are the benefits?
No, I like the improv here. I started doing cold and heat therapy about 6 months ago, and it's just like I don't know, like a dopamine rush. I just feel good. It's part of my daily routine. I typically do a cold plunge before a workout. I don't know why we're talking about this, but it's hilarious.
It's important though. And you want to be happier and more effective in the moment. That will spill over into your interviews, trying to get a job, or in the role itself. And like, it's foundational. So I think it matters, you know?
Yeah. It's part of the routine. And like, one of the questions you had sent me is, you know, what was something that I learned through tech sales, you know, that was kind of unexpected. And I think having a disciplined routine and working out and diet is a huge part of that. And cold plunge is something that we're hitting on right now. There's a lot of research, not to get all scientific on you, that Andrew Huberman has come out with that shows like the positive mental impacts, managing stress, and also the physical impacts after, you know, before a workout, like strength training, or after like a long cardio workout. So, and it wakes you up. I mean, you're in 38-degree water, or at least I was this morning, and it woke me up. And then I went over to the nitro cold brew, so that got me going. But we got sidetracked,
Yeah, yeah.
Chris.
I mean,
Yeah,
hey, and working out, man, is the keystone habit, and it pairs well with cold exposure therapy. But it's amazing. Like if you work out more, you boost your happy chemicals in your brain. You show up better and more effectively, of a healthy sense of pride, and it's like a
yeah,
401k for your mind, your brain long term. So I saw a study that if you people who work out more, they love themselves more, and they actually spend less on their credit card. Like that's a random thing. But it's like, so I like that we're not overstepping it, but let's take a side step back to what we were talking about, which was your journey, which was kind
yeah.
of uncharacteristic. And I'm curious to dig a little bit into your experience at Oracle, because I was at the Big O as well, and I'm grateful for the experience. But like, what did you learn from your time at Oracle?
Yeah, yeah. So, Oracle, getting the job at Oracle, I was actually an account executive selling international shipping at DHL Express. So just
Okay.
getting my butt kicked by UPS and FedEx, left and right.
What were you
And
selling there? Like what was that?
yeah, it was international shipping for corporations all over the Austin, Texas area. And those are shipments that are mission critical, like next day, next 2 days, that have to get to Australia, for example. Um, and it was challenging. And, selling shipping is not very sexy. And it wasn't something that I was really passionate about, the whole shipping industry. But it got my foot in the door, and it got me an interview with Oracle. And my experience at Oracle, I was interviewing at Oracle for an SDR position, and I knew that I was taking a step back, right? Because I was in a revenue closing position at DHL
Ooh,
Express.
this is good to dig into, man, because so many people
Yeah,
come up to me. They're like, "Oh, should I just go to AE?" And I'm like, "No, that's a big mistake. Even if you've sold, you have a master's in education. Like, what was your thinking on
yeah,
taking the SDR role, even when you were a full cycle closer?"
yeah. So it was really twofold. One, I wanted to get the Oracle badge and get
Yeah.
Oracle on my resume, and I saw that as a way to get into tech. And there's a lot of money in tech, right? And two, I needed to learn an operating rhythm in terms of building funnel and building pipeline. And I didn't have that going into DHL Express. It was just sink or swim. So a lot of what I was doing was coming from books like Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blunt, or just, from mentors and things like that. So Oracle, my experience there was, Oracle's a huge machine, right? They started with database. And when I got there back in 2014, they were trying to go cloud, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and
Dude, yes.
SaaS.
And I wonder, did we overlap? I actually just missed you. So I left Oracle. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, December of 2018, 2019. I went to Google, and you went to Oracle, right? Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
It's funny because I interviewed for Google, and I made it to the final round, and
Dang.
I got shut down. That was 2016. Yeah, 2016, before I moved to LA for a
That's
year.
impressive, man, that you got the final round. And a little bit of a tangent, but like, what was that Google interview process like? Like, was it pretty
Oh
challenging?
man.
Like,
It was like taking an improv class. I mean, they were just throwing all types of questions. Like, if you had $3 billion, how would you invest that into Google Cloud to make it better?
oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, and just random questions to try to bring out the personality, I guess, right? And
Yeah.
apparently, I didn't, I didn't make it, and that was okay. But it was a
How do you
cool
handle that? How
what.
do you handle, like, because failure is a part of sales, and some
Mhm.
people I work with, they're making it the final round. Like one guy, I think it was Datadog, flew him out to Denver, and they said, "Oh wow, we usually don't do this," and he felt so great, and then he lost to someone who beat him out, and it was a heartbreaking thing. But so how
Yeah.
do you deal with rejection like that? And then maybe yours wasn't maybe you didn't feel like your heart
Ooh.
was really broken, but how do you
Ooh.
handle it?
You and I can really riff off of this, Chris, because rejection and failure, it's part of sales. It's part
Yeah.
of selling. And like I went all in on the Google interview. I mean, I studied for it. I reached out to
Yes.
people that worked at Google, and I ultimately failed. I didn't get the job. And what I did to help myself get through that process, because it was rough, was, I reached out to my network and I took inventory of the failure and the things that I learned throughout the interview process, the questions that were asked. And I tried so hard to reach back out to Google to get feedback, but they were not allowed, company policy, to give me the exact reason why I didn't get the job. So that was the toughest part. But how I kind of handled that failure was more so, reflecting on the interview process and the takeaways that I could take and go to my next role, or go to the next phase of my life. Because you have to, you have to fail forward. And so many people, especially because we started getting into the SDR role, which is so vital, especially at a large company like Oracle, and the enterprise companies like SAP, IBM, Microsoft, Salesforce. It's a lot of rejection at first. And, you got to get the meeting, and you get rejected a lot. You get hung up on a lot. Your emails don't go, they go without getting answered, and things like that. And people give up after 3 to 4 touch points. But learning how to fail forward is extremely important in sales, and especially when you're at the top of funnel and you're an SDR, you're just starting at Oracle like I was. And what you want to do in that scenario is you really want to understand your product market fit, and understand the stories that your happy clients are telling your client success team if you're at a larger company. But it's extremely important to understand the success stories, the wins, and the proof points and the metrics to how that deal got done. And that's how you craft your messaging ultimately as an SDR or BDR, whatever you want to call it, to go to market with your prospecting and cadences, right? But a lot of it's rejection. I mean, you're looking at 4 to 6% open rates. If you're doing SalesLoft or Zoom Info cadences, things like that. And a lot of what you want to do is tailor your messaging around your happy clients and storytelling. But the person you're reaching out to, you want to make sure that you do your research ahead of time, and maybe sprinkle a little, personality in that note. And go for you got to get the open rate, right? Like you got to get the meeting. That's your job as an SDR. Like, yes, you are paid on qualified first meetings. Like some companies do BANTs, right? Budget authority, necessity, timeline, and get that on the calendar for your AE or field rep. But at the end of the day, you got to have a process to generate really, really good messaging right from the get-go. But you're going to get rejected. It's just part of it.
Yeah, it's such a good reminder. I always say rejection's God's protection. It points you in a new and better direction. And sometimes customers, like, I've had customers that cost our company money because of all the support, bringing on our engineers who had their time is very valuable and expensive. And they cost more than the profit they brought in. And it's a blessing to actually have those customers not work out. And then you get more time to focus on the customers that are actually profitable.
Right.
And I feel the same way with companies. Like, when you're applying to companies, you might not get a role, and you might've been saved from a company that was about to go under, or actually had a toxic culture. I've seen folks get jobs at companies that weren't what they expected. They were sold a vision, and painted a rosy picture of the culture, but it wasn't what they thought it was. And I'll tell you, like, when I was at Oracle, I was applying for a role to go from SDR to account executive, and it seemed like a great role, and I bombed. But then I learned from it, and I got a role promoted to AE at an even better segment within Oracle. Do you remember, like, national tech, named accounts, and different?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So national tech. It was great. But what was your next step after Oracle? Like, where did you pop to next?
Yeah. So I kind of went off the beaten path after Oracle. I actually transferred to their Santa Monica hub out in Los Angeles to pursue a little acting on the side, and failed miserably.
About that, another bet. I love that you're like, one thing I'm taking from you is like, be courageous, and you're like the type of guy that takes risks, and you're not going to go to your deathbed with regret. you know, and so I love that. Tell us about the acting venture.
Yeah, life's short, and you know, like movies, like creating, like in my high school, the Union City Bears, like I was I oversaw production of the Barely News, like pre and post production, and that was something that always stuck with me. And so I started taking an acting class when I worked at Oracle to help with my presentation skills, and I I kind of fell in love with the acting process, but I wasn't really that good. But when I moved out to LA, I still kept my role as an AE, trying to sell cloud against AWS. But I was also, attending acting classes and doing student films and things like that. I think nowadays this culture, like it's important to have like a passion project or a side hustle on top of your day job. Not to take away from the day job or the topic of today's discussion, tech sales. You got to hit your number. You got to perform at the end of the day. But there's a whole nother industry out there, in the entertainment industry. And what I learned in LA is that that's not where I wanted to be. I didn't like Los Angeles. So it was very, very kind of not me, I guess.
It wasn't here, man. I got depressed in the pandemic. It was like a horrible place to be at the time. So
yeah. But they're very similar in a sense, right? Because you got to be kind of, as they say, audible, ready to throw a buzz term out there, and acting improv classes helps with that. But yeah, it was a year that I spent in LA, and I decided after Oracle that I wanted to move on into a more like hunter based role. So I took a job at a company called Paycom, and that was next level. Building out your territory. It was a pure hunter role, competing against Workday, and a lot of ADP and things like that. And so, yeah, it was a journey. It was an adventure. And I guess the learning lesson from that is, follow your gut, check in with your mentors and your network. I think it's really important, as you and I both know, to have a mentor, to run certain scenarios by. And I did that going out to LA, and I also did that during my time in LA. And it's important to, just double check yourself as you're making these moves. But it's always important to note, like, whatever you do in life, whatever pursuit you're on, you want to make sure that you learn from that, like fail or win. You definitely want to document that, and take those skills to your next gig, right? So, but ultimately, I ended up back in Austin and back in a selling role. So that was my LA stint. So
yeah, and what did you like about the community of Austin? Like and you're here with me, which is super fun. And we just shot that rap music video that's dropping on Friday. I can't wait. So thanks for being a part of it and supporting that.
Yeah.
But what do you like about Austin?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in Austin since 2013. 2013, I was actually commuting every day, for those of you in Austin, from William Cannon, on the wrong side of William Cannon, all the way to Round Rock to work at Enterprise Rent a Car, which was not fun. But I quickly learned that Austin was a very business friendly community. A lot of entrepreneurs want to share their ideas. A lot of tech sales professionals want to work with other tech sales professionals to learn best practices. And it's a very business friendly community here in Austin, but you have a little bit of everything. Like for example, like if you were to move to New York City, they got their financial district. They have Wall Street, right? It's more finance. If you were to move to LA, there's a lot of entertainment, right? If you were to move to Silicon Valley, that's kind of changing now because a lot of it's coming down here to Austin. But you kind of pigeonhole yourself to specific industries, whereas Austin has a little bit of everything. And you know, the comedy scene has blown up here, and there's just a lot of people that are willing to have conversations, and a lot of people that are willing to help out here in the Austin community. So that's that, and also the health culture that's here. There's a lot of people that strive to get better at what they're doing every single day, and learning from other people. Like you and I both know, you know, going to Squatch Fitness, you know, we see the people working there at the highest level, trying to get better, like in the gym, or, you know, people that are having conversations about their business idea. It's just very conversational. Austin's very conversational. Some people say that's changing because, you know, we've seen a lot of growth, and a lot of people move here from New York and LA and Silicon Valley, but the heart of Austin is still throbbing. It hasn't changed that much, except Google has its logo on the skyline, which is different.
Yeah, no, I was up in that building, and I used to see that G, and I was proud of it. And it's funny, man. They definitely put their stamp on the city.
Yeah, they did that. They definitely did that. And, you know, Amazon has made a huge investment. Apple has made a huge investment here. John Deere has made a huge investment. They have an office right off of Congress, which is LA Avenue, is like I like to call it. That Congress Avenue is kind of LA-ified. But for the most part, I think Austin is a great spot to start a business, or to be a tech sales professional, for sure.
Yeah, guys, just everyone come to Austin. Maybe we'll do these interviews live and get a little theater or something. But it's such a great city, and you run into people that are willing to mentor you, that are doing incredible things, like Mr. Tom Singer, who's here live. Tom, you're the man.
He said, Tom's here.
Yeah, he said, yes, a good mentor makes a difference. And he's honestly changed my life, and you've changed my life, Jake, because when I told you I want to be a professional speaker, you said, I know Tom Singer, you need to meet him. He is a professional speaker. And that was just, I really appreciate that, man, and make that intro, and the rest is history. I'm curious, like, how has Tom, let's use Tom as an example, impacted your life, like personally and professionally? Because I think I want to drive the point home that mentors make a major difference in our success.
100%. And I'm going to recycle something that Tom always used to say to me. If you want to go do something, figure out who's doing it. Maybe not at the highest level, but maybe like the middle level, and see how you can add value to their life. Ask them out to coffee. And like it's extremely important to do that, you know, so you can learn from their mistakes and kind of fast track your path to where you want to go. And you know, there's a lot of programs out there. Like I remember being at the program at Oracle. There's a lot of broken mentor programs out there where you're just kind of forced to check in, and you're checking the boxes of, yeah, I made 20 calls today, I piped an opportunity today. Great. But it's not like real constructive feedback. Like when I met Tom at a Barnes and Noble, like Starbucks inside Barnes and Noble, and we just stayed in touch ever since. And we've been in touch for the past 10 years of me living here. And, you know, like through him, I've definitely learned a lot. But you know, it's important to check in and have that mentor that's going to give you real feedback and learn from. And also it's important to add value, you know, once you do find that person, as it's a two-way street. And, you know, I think Tom has really embraced the Austin culture. I mean, he's the CEO of the ATC, Austin Technology. Yeah. And like what a great guy. I mean, you know, like you and him were just at the NSA conference, right? Because you know, you're doing a lot with speaking and sales and doing a lot of great things. And it's that community that Tom has really passed along in his network. And that's really kind of trickled into you and I, like building our friendship and branching out and meeting people. And that's like, I think Tom, you know, not to keep plugging him, has really embraced that. Yeah, I mean, that's how we met, right?
and look at it, Tom's showing up today, CEO of the Tech Council, professional speaker. He's got a family, another full-time job, and he shows up and he's here. So Tom, thank you for being here. One day we'll do a 3-way interview. I'll get my camera working. We'll figure it out. Maybe we'll do a video in person and we'll have Tom on. But Just driving home the point again, guys, like modeling after mentors, like being able to learn from them really accelerates your success. But most importantly, beyond the success, it leads to like a very deep friendship and relationship. Like I consider dad Tom like a dad to me, like a in a way, and he met my parents. So I'm so glad that Jake, you as well, I acknowledge you for having a heart for community. You were telling me the other day, Chris, like we need to build community in Austin. Like I want to get a community going. And this is a community that I'm so glad for the people that are live and for the people that show up in the future to see this video. Thank you guys for being a part of this community and contributing with your time and attention. Would love to hear comments from you on your ideas.
Yeah.
Back, you know, and if sometimes I'm not perfect, like I might put out a video that doesn't sit right and I take that in, but this is a community that, and I'm glad to be shaping it with you, Jake. And last thing to say as I ramble and then turn it over to you is that my website's coming out on Friday and there's going to be a thing called the Mentor Network. And I'd love to have you on there as someone that folks can engage with. And I encourage you guys either way to connect with Jake and myself on LinkedIn. So Jake, passing the mic over to you.
Yeah, I'd like to, really double down on that. It's so important to kind of have a guide, right? It's so important, and to kind of branch over into community, right? We're all working from home, like sales professionals. Like most of us are working from home. We might do a day or two in the office, and you kind of miss that the conversation that goes on in an office, right? So it's important to have these types of communities, right? Where we're having a conversation. Like there's a script in front of me. I'm not using it. Like we're just talking about like
we've gone off the rails with our script, and we didn't expect, you know, for my camera not to work today, but that's life, and it's a beautiful dance, and that's the tapestry that, you know, it's full of knots. Like a tapestry is knots on the back, but it's what makes the beautiful image on the front. And I love how this conversation is flowing. I have an idea where it's going, but I'm not going to be showing. Okay, I'm going to stop rhyming. Anyways, so Jake, man. I wanted to ask you, just kind of shifting gears about from Paycom, where did you go next? Was that when you transitioned into cybersecurity, or what was next?
Yeah, so I took a step back from carrying a bag and quota. You know, like you either need to take a sabbatical or, you know, go 2 months and just chill for a little bit. I took a step back and I got my first remote gig, you know, through my network. My good friend Hayden Driesman got me hired at a company called Micro Focus, and I learned a little bit more of the technology side of things and auditing and compliance behind the software that's sold. So that was my first remote gig, and that was also my ticket back to Austin, Texas. So that was my escape from the LA scaries, right? So so I took a job at Micro Focus, and my role was a auditor. I was the software police. If you were using licenses that you didn't pay for, I was calling you, and we were setting up calls to figure out how you were going to get compliant. And that's what I did. But I quickly learned that, you know, I want to get back to selling. So again, through my network, I think it's important here because we talked about community, but I keep bringing up network. And networking is a never ending thing. Like networking, you always want to, it's such a kind of a cheesy term. I don't even like the word, but just meeting people and like reaching out to people is so important, because, you know, where I got to today is through the friends I made, like in whether, you know, the tech community or the community where I'm living. It just goes to show, like the job at Micro Focus, for example. You know, once you do break down the door and you do get into tech sales, you get that job at Oracle, Microsoft, you're eventually going to want to go somewhere else, most likely, and you're going to want to have a good network for that. And especially in today's economy, it's so important to have a network to rely on to get your foot in the door. So I think it's really important to do that. Before I ramble on about my story here, I think that's really important to talk about. But after Micro Focus, I wanted to carry a bag and have a sales job. So through my network, I got a job at Everbridge. I was referred into, and I learned the whole security profession. whether physical or cybersecurity. I was helping a lot of clients with critical event management and incident response, doing a lot of deals. Like, there's a lot of bad things that are happening right now. Like the threat landscape has never been more pervasive and crazy and noisy. And I was helping a lot of clients manage those risks, whether it be situational awareness for their executive travel or their business continuity. If something popped up like a protest, that's around their mission critical infrastructure. I was selling software to those types of companies, and I just want to give a shout out to the security community, because they, once you do break in and learn who they are, and it's so important, like in sales, like to get to know like who your personas, who you're selling to. Like at the end of the day, like business is people. Like we're all people. And my experience selling in the security community, it's very tight, right? Like everyone knows everyone. It's a lot of word of mouth, and you got to maintain a healthy brand, as you're doing the sales cycle. And you've got to multi-thread, because when you're selling to physical security professionals, oftentimes they have to create budget as opposed to having to prove projects when you're going through the sales cycle, and that takes time. So you got to be able to maintain those relationships and ask for introductions to, their boss, and you got to have a business case in order to do that. And in order to have a nice business case, you have to have a relationship. So from there, and please stop me with any questions. But
no, it's interesting because I wanted to know about what drew you to the cybersecurity space, and like what it's like why do you like that space? Because that's actually, I think, one of the best spaces you can be in when you're selling SaaS. Security, like vulnerabilities are only increasing, and it's never going away. And regardless of a downturn or not, like you do need to reduce risk. So my guts, like I haven't when I was at Google Cloud and at Oracle, and now at my current company, we've done had security solutions like these big platforms do. They at least address a small sliver of security. I'm a consultant. We do security assessment, risk analysis, but so it's obviously big, but it's cool that you got full into a security specific solution. So yeah, continue to riff off of what it's like selling security, and why you like this space, and do you plan to stay in this category?
Yeah, it's a very interesting space, and CEOs and boards are having to allocate budget to protect their business, right? To mitigate risk. And a lot of objections that you get is okay, an insurance policy, right? You don't want to be known as another insurance policy, but CEOs are having to do that. CFOs are having to do that. Breaches, and there's a new threat out there that's called info stealers, where there is literally cyber crime families that are literally embedding malware on individual machines. These things are growing, and it's a major concern. Like we've all heard about the Target breach, we've all heard about the Colonial Pipeline, and so this is not. It's only going to increase in the amount of projects that are created and the amount of budget that's allocated in this space. So it's a very lucrative career, right? So if you're very financially driven, which I am not, if I'm being honest with myself, it's a very good space to be in. What I really like about this is you're talking to ex-CIA, ex-DHS, ex-FBI people. And so they're used to interrogating foreign state criminals or whatever. And so when you get on a first discovery call with these guys, you're kind of I'm kind of pale in the face. I can't, you almost have to go full Todd Capone transparency sale. You have to lean in with an idea and a industry trend, hey, these are what the competitors are doing in your industry to help with organizational resilience, and here's why they're doing it, and here are the stories to back that up. So it's a very, again, like I said, it's a very tight community. You have a lot of these security professionals that are coming from the government, right? Like X 3-letter agency that are used to doing, POI or person of interest work, where they're doing investigations, where they're investigating these large breaches, and then they go over to the corporate sector, and now they're managing GSOCs, Global Security Operations Center, and their whole job is to make sure that nothing about the brand or reputation or the executive is going to harm the business or the bottom line, because the stock will go down. So it's they're in a very high stakes job. And if you can add value and become that trusted advisor to the security professional, you're going to go a long way in that space. And it takes a lot of research and understanding of the product that you sell, how you differentiate from the competition, the problems that you solve. Like you almost have to become obsessed with the problems that you solved or solve as a company, and become really good at storytelling when you go into those first calls and build trust with these guys, because they have to fight, especially today, like for every budget and penny they get for the tools that they use. And it's a very crowded space. I went to RSA this year in San Francisco, and RIP San Francisco. Hopefully that place gets better, but it's kind of hurting right now. But the RSA conference it's like the #1 cybersecurity conference out there.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how competitive it was until I was at this conference. And it was very eye-opening as to how well you have to articulate your story, what you do, who you are, how you do it better, and things like that. And it's very, I think something to call out here, like going to this conferences and trade shows, it's very important to do that. And I think, in-person events are coming back. Going back to the whole top of funnel building pipeline conversation, I think it's very important to attend these events and become part of these communities. And like when you get into sales, there is a point in time where a lot of individuals get into the habit of, what's in it for me? Like, I have to hit my quota. I have a number to hit. But like when you're selling to security professionals, that is going to get you put on a pip really fast. Like you have to learn, like, what are the industry trends? Like, what is this company facing? Have they been through any breaches lately? Like how can I help them? Like, what value, can I bring to them? And that's what I just really enjoy talking to these individuals. Like after you do break through that initial conversation, okay, like, like Chris did his homework, like he came prepared, he understands the industry, he understands the competition. He called out several tools that I was using. I wasn't expecting that. Like after you have that conversation, then you can really get to know, like, these people are out there protecting lives. Like executive protection is a huge category in the space. And there's a huge mega trend going on right now. It's like the convergence of physical and cyber, where there's these fusion centers that are being built, where both the cyber teams and physical security teams are coming together and working together on incident response, and also working together for proactive protective intelligence. So it's just a really fascinating space. And once you get to know these guys that you're talking to, these girls that you're talking to, you'll learn really fast about what they've been through in their past. I mean, some of the stories I've heard on these calls are just fascinating. So it's a very lucrative space to be in, but you have to be in it for the right reasons, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, you got me excited about cybersecurity. It's really an education for me. Like, I'm taking notes. So very helpful for these future tech sales individuals or folks that are early in their career that might want to make a pivot into a better category within tech sales. I feel like cybersecurity sounds like a place where you're talking to very fascinating, interesting people. And can you share a story that you've heard? Obviously, we're not going to reference any, like, no context of who the account was, but like any are there any that come to mind? If not, well, I just have plenty of other questions to ask you, but thought I'd ask.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was a time where I was in Houston, visiting clients, and I was with some individuals that used to, work in the government and do detail work, and they worked with a very well-known individual, and just listening to how they did detail work and armed vehicles and gathering intelligence of what was being said on social media. Is this an actual threat, or is this just noise? It was just fascinating to hear that. I mean, they're monitoring all of this, right? And the reason they're doing that is to, be proactive as opposed to reactive. I mean, that's the whole goal of any security team, is to be more proactive. But it was just really fascinating to hear like them go back and forth, like about, driving armed vehicles, or, having to call in new vehicles, or, having to, go in various rooms to accommodate for executive protection. I mean, it's things like that. And I'm just a sales guy on a call, just like, this is crazy. This is good. I've almost lost track, like, about like the sales questions I had to ask, and I'm just like really curious about whatever you're talking about right now. I haven't really had those conversations at other companies that I've worked for.
Yeah, I mean, some of the benefits of tech sales, one is like the friendships you get, like our friendship, where we're, growing together, supporting each other, and it's just a lot of fun. And then also getting to meet really cool people who are, yeah, your customers. But in the case of, for me, I might meet a founder of a really cool new startup that's super innovative and interesting. And in your case, I mean, I don't get to talk to these like former, um, detail folks, if that's the, I'm probably butchering it, but yeah, that's definitely not the right term, but you get the point, right? Like these are like very interesting people. It reminds me of like the Dos Equis guy, the most interesting man in the world. So the fact that you're in those conversations, you get to look under the hood in a place where most people don't get to look. So I wanted to ask you about selling cybersecurity. My gut would be, like I mentioned, the cost of a breach, right? Like it's costs millions and millions of dollars, according to this report, and like no one can afford that. And the chances of a breach are actually greater than you think. And maybe 60%. I'm making this up, right? And you play up fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That's my gut. But like, how do you actually sell cybersecurity? Like, what factors do you focus on to create urgency and compel them?
Yeah, so you bring up a really interesting point, because uh, what you just referred to, like selling off a fear, is called ambulance chasing, and you don't want to do that.
Ooh,
So
ooh.
so yeah, I mean, you don't want to do that, and just throw out scary statistics, or, hey, I heard about this breach. Did you hear about that breach? And lean in with that. It's more, you have to have more um involvement in the community. Like where are your happy by, like, so you have clients, right, at any corporation, or you should. At my company, we're kind of small, right, but you have happy clients, right? You want to learn where these people are hanging out, right? And you want to figure out when they're evaluating tools and they have an active project going on. You want to learn, like where they go to do those evaluations, and you want to build those relationship. I mean, I remember when I was in Houston, and I was meeting with a chief security officer of a large commercial real estate firm, and we got in an elevator, and I wasn't drinking at the time, but he had a few way too many bourbons, and he had just one hell of a day. And in the elevator on the ride up, because I was talking to him at the bar, he was just like, Jake, this is all about relationships. Like, here's my card, just call me. He was like, I want to understand your tools. But what people need to know about the security space is, again, it's very tight. It's very tight. They know almost all the solutions out there, and they've evaluated almost every tool out there to see if they can add efficiency, to see if they can consolidate applications that they're already using today, to see if they can make it for their analysts that are taking this near finished intelligence and making it actionable, and providing actionable reports to their executive team. And if you could break in that way, as opposed to going cold and doing ambulance chasing, that's a huge step. But if you can't do that and you don't have any happy clients, then you got to be able to go to shows and trade shows, and make sure that you have your story down pat. And it's all about building trust with these guys. It's a slow sales cycle. You know, we're talking 9 to 12 months. But you know, it's a different persona, and you have to be able to articulate your story so well and differentiate your product so well when you have these first initial conversations. But it's also important to understand the problem that you're solving a little bit more, and be able to tell stories about how you solve that problem. Like when you have a conversation with a security professional, they should feel like you've solved that problem 1,000 times. You know, so it's very, it's not transactional. It's not ambulance chasing. That's not how you're gonna win. You're gonna win by, if you have a happy client base, tapping into that first, and maybe asking for referrals, or asking, hey, like, where are your peers hanging out? And going to those conferences, or maybe, you know, doing a field day trip if you're a field sales rep, and getting out there and having those conversations in person. But it's very, very relationship driven, very word of mouth, and it's challenging, because you have to create budget, right? There's really, you know, a lot of, when you're selling, there's either a project that's defined, where you're doing maybe RFPs and things like that, or you have to create budget. And for these types of sales, oftentimes you have to create budget, especially if you're like a startup in the cyber community, or a startup in the physical security side of the house. You have to be able to learn how to create and co-author with your champion the ROI of your product, the value of your product, and not to go full med pick, but you have to drive home the metrics that are associated with implementing your solution.
Go full MedPick on us, because I don't think some of the audience would know what. Not everyone knows what MedPick is, so walk us through it.
Oh boy, okay, you put me on the spot. So,
well, hey, I actually don't remember the full thing too. If you do, that's great, but I'm actually curious.
Yeah, so metrics. So M stands for metrics, and those are the metrics associated with the business case. Whether you're increasing profitability, or you're decreasing risk, or you're saving money, those are the metrics that are associated with it. E stands for economic buyer. Who created this project, or who ultimately signs off on this? So, you know, a lot of times in the security space, you don't really know. I mean, yeah, the C-suite, you know, the CISO or the CSO, and oftentimes now, with this type of economy, the CFO steps in. But that's the economic buyer. D, the first D, stands for decision process. What is their defined decision process to procure a new tool, a new solution? And you have to be able to map that out with your champion that you're working with. Decision criteria. Decision criteria is the criteria that is defined for a project that your tool has to hit. So these are like the technical requirements that your tool has to hit, whether SOC 1, SOC 2 compliant, or maybe it has to be, I don't know, just secure. I don't know. I can't think right now. And then there's a lot of people forget there's a paper process. If you're selling into large enterprises, there's a paper process. And right now, because of the state of the economy, that is being rigorously torn up and reviewed by procurement teams. So you have to work with your champion and create other champions within an account and opportunity to understand and outline that paper process. So that way, when you go into your forecast calls, you're not going to just get punched in the face over and over and over again. And then I stands for identify pain. That's huge. You have to be able to tie your value to their pain point. And even bigger, you might be able to take a pain point and create metrics out of it, an identified pain point. But what you really want to do with that identified pain is to get to their business initiatives. Like, what is that company in their 10K? What are the business initiatives that you can align to? And there's 2 C's, I think. Well, one
Okay,
is
go ahead. You're killing it, man. I actually
uh,
didn't know MedPick, and you're killing it. Keep going. You're almost there.
Um, there, yeah, C is champion.
Yep.
A champion is someone who has authority and influence in the account, and they are looking to get a promotion. They might have some personal goals that you can help them with, but that's the person that you want to that you want to build that relationship with, and you want to pressure test as well. A lot of times, one of the biggest mistakes that people make is confusing a coach with a champion. A coach is someone who's going to coach you through the account that you're working and maybe navigate you through some certain things, but they don't have any influence or authority. A champion does both, and they have the authority. And you definitely want to co-author everything with that champion. And then the final C, there might just be one C, but if there were another C, I would say closing.
Okay.
You want,
I got you. I looked it up. The man behind with no face here today. It's competition.
Wow.
Or
Yeah.
competitors.
Yeah. So competitors. Yep. And in the security space, it's red waters. It's red waters, man. It's bloody waters out there. There's a lot of competition out there. So you got to know your competition like the back of your hand, because they're going to throw down competitive traps. They're going to throw down all these things that are going to trip you up in a sales cycle. So you got to know, especially if your champion is willing to share their current state, their current environment, and if they're already working with your competitors. You got to know that. So you got to know your competition.
Yeah. Hey, this conversation's flown by, man. So much value. MedBig is something no one's really shared actually on this channel of all my guests, and I've had a lot. So kudos to you,
Oh
man.
man.
I've got 3 or 4 more questions. We started late. We got about 8 minutes, and so we'll do a little bit of a rapid fire. I wanted to ask you about what it's like selling at a startup versus an enterprise.
Ooh, this is one of my favorite questions, because it's so fascinating. I would say like selling at a startup, it's like you're a sales rep, right? So you have a number, but you also have a pulse on your company's vision, or you should. And your job is to, depending on where you're at as a startup, is to build product market fit, everyone's favorite term, PMF, product market fit. Do you have a repeatable process or problem that you solve? Is there a fit for your product in the market? If there's not, that's a really big problem. And your job on the front lines is to take the feedback that you have on your initial discovery calls or whatever calls you have, and give feedback to products. So you're almost kind of like a rogue or shadow, like CTO, really, because you're trying to identify where your product can be sold in the market, and if there's a fit and need for it, and if there's not, you should be developing relationships to get feedback sessions. Like, if I lose a deal, I want to know why, and I'm going to pass that information along to my CEO and my CTO, so that we can figure that out. Selling at a startup, and you're also wearing multiple hats. Like, I'm doing sales ops, I'm doing marketing. So you're doing quite a bit. So, and it's also really good experience, right? But it's also, versus a well, fine-tuned machine like an Oracle, where they have pod systems, or Google, where they have pod
Yeah.
systems and things like that. That's totally different. That's, it's
It's wild west at a startup, and I'm starting to
yeah.
hit a stage at my company where we're gonna, maybe I'll have a chance to evolve into a leader of a pod, right? And so that is kind of how it happens, right? But it's exciting to be in the wild west, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of people enjoy it. A lot of people do not enjoy it, because it's there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty, and you're driving home a lot of the messaging that goes all the way up to the board, and your investors and your CEO, and you're saying, we need this. This deal didn't work because of this, and so it's a lot of learning lessons, but it's very exciting as well. I mean, because you can start to identify data within your sales cycles and opportunities, whether close won or close lost, that hey, like it might work in this department for this specific industry, and here's the data to support that. So it's totally different than going to like an Oracle or IBM or Microsoft.
Yeah, no, it is completely different. It's super exciting, but I feel like the path we took in a way, starting in a big enterprise, was really nice. It was like a launch pad that gave us connections and a baseline skill set and a brand that's marketable to hop to another company. And I'm curious, like, what's next for you at your current role? Like, because right now you're director of sales for North America, and you're really driving revenue for the company. And like, where do you see things going next in your career from a sales perspective?
Yeah, I think what's next for me in my role is to really drive home repeatable revenue, predictable revenue. Like we now have a better understanding than we did 3 months from now or a month from now about what works and what doesn't work. So like for me, it's now building out a business plan to go and get those clients that are going to get the most value, right? The ICP, the ideal client profile, has been identified. So it's really just growing the business, and it could be very rewarding and exciting, and it could also be very frustrating, right? And you run into both of those emotions. But at this point, H2, right? I'm in Q3, so now it's like, okay, let's dial up the pressure. We learned, we had a lot of learnings in H1 and Q1, Q2. So let's go out and bring in some revenue at the end of the day. So
Yeah,
yeah.
man. It's cool to interview someone who's in the real world hustling and doing with proven success and in the trenches still. We'll talk a little bit as we wrap up about your future vision and the things you're doing beyond your 9 to 5. But before that, I had two more tech sales related questions. Could be three. I might squeeze another in there. But the first one is about prospecting. Like, what do you recommend to people like to be effective in prospecting? And I'm asking you this as if you can't network, you're not going out in person and building that customer intimacy and relationships in person. If it was like you're just stuck with a laptop, LinkedIn, and a phone, what have you seen actually work for you, especially at a startup where you don't have a big brand to lean on?
Yeah, so it's a lot of LinkedIn. It's a lot of who are my second degree connections. Can anyone introduce me to the person I need to get to? But step number one, like in that specific scenario, if you're going to a startup, is identifying your ideal client profile and your persona that has purchased your product in the past. You need to articulate that. You need to meet with your CEO. You need to meet with your CTO, your boss, and you need to say, who is our buyer? And you need to go into LinkedIn Sales Navigator, run a save search, and save those people. And then you need to figure out who are my second degree connections where I could possibly get introduced to those people. But before you reach out, you want to make sure you have your messaging down. So messaging can come from happy customers. It could come from the problems that you've solved in the past, and you need to put that together and tailor it specifically to that person. Now more than ever, we have all this data that we can leverage on LinkedIn to the person that we're trying to reach out to. So doing some deep research on not just that person, but maybe an initiative in their 10K that they might be aligned with, and keep it short, concise, maybe 3 sentences on, like, hey, like, we help solve X, Y, and Z for companies in your industry. I noticed on LinkedIn that you're new to the role, so you might be evaluating some tools. Are you interested in, I don't know, like taking a call? But they have to feel like you put in the time and effort to write that email. And,
Yes.
you know, and if they don't feel like that, you know, if this is like purely cold and they don't feel like that, then it's kind of a waste. And there's a lot of things to be said. You know, if you do have product market fit, you have an ICP, and you can load up like people in like a sales loft and a cadence. You know, if you're really good at messaging and you want to go that route, by all means do that. But just know that like in the security space specifically, they get, you know, these people get hit up all the time. So anything you could do to figure out how can I make this a warm outreach, and a lot of it's multiple platform approach, like you know, email, phone call, a LinkedIn request, a LinkedIn message, and maybe identify a group that they're involved in, that you could maybe join. So it's really getting creative these days. And you know, a lot of people are sick and tired of salespeople reaching out when budgets are tight. CFOs and procurement teams are really starting to step on deals that are at the finish line. And so these people don't want to talk to salespeople. And so it's really just, you got to get creative and figure out how to get the foot in the door. So I feel like I went around that question,
No, yeah, I mean,
because
it was a great one. You
it,
gave a lot
it's
of.
hard. It's hard to get the first meeting. Like, just be honest, dude. It's that might be the hardest thing, is getting that first meeting.
You gave a good example of how to be thoughtful in the approach to reaching out. And I think that thoughtfulness and effort is a differentiator. And it's not sexy. You might not get responses, but it's very well worth it, especially when you're trying to turn cold outreach more warm. And I would argue that this approach to prospecting is, and building your network and creating warm inroads is the number one way to break into tech sales with no experience. It's like and so you can apply these concepts to reaching out to an SDR or AE at the company you're trying to work at. If it's in the cybersecurity space, you could reach out to Jake and see, how can I help you? Maybe you could share one of his videos, or as he builds, you know, his brand, or this and that. Like, I don't know, you learn, find a personal touch to reach out to Jake, and maybe he can help you get your foot in the door. But Jake, I wanted to ask you if there's anything else that you would hit on in terms of like key things to focus on for these folks who have no experience that want to break in, and maybe even specifically in a cybersecurity company. Is there any other tips on breaking in when you have no experience?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to like break in when you have no experience, unfortunately, given the current state of the economy, you almost have to know someone at that company. If you don't know somebody at that company, I mean, do your research and find out like the top 5 companies in that space, right? And you almost have to have a referral to get in and get an interview. But you got to get creative, right? I mean, like the days of sending a resume to the Indeed post or the LinkedIn post are kind of over. I mean, because those are filling up like crazy. And if you don't have like the connection to get in there, you better build a relationship. Maybe get creative and submit like a contact request, like go on, I don't know, Microsoft's website and fill out a demo request and just say, hey, you know, I'm Jake. I'm looking to get on a sales team. That's why I requested the demo. Is there any way I can have a conversation with the sales manager? And here's why. I mean, I've heard that works, but like given the state of economy, it's, you can't just send a piece of paper. I mean, that's just gonna, you know, get burned or like shredded. But the resumes that are getting put on top are the ones that are endorsed by somebody else in the company. So if you I don't know, like, I don't like figure it out. No, I'm sorry. But
No, this is
it's
a great piece of advice. Very,
yeah,
you know,
it's I've just heard of that one. It's creativity, and leverage your network, leverage your mentors to figure that out. Because there's a lot of CEOs and executives out there that are really buckling down because they think there's a recession coming. So you got to be careful, and a lot of companies are freezing hiring. So it's not all good news here, man. but that's sales, right?
But hey, and it's like there are companies you could find the diamonds in the rough that are hiring, just like Zoom boomed in the pandemic because a need was created to shift to remote work, and people at Zoom probably just making bank, So it's like there are always opportunities, and resilience and failing forward is ultimately what guarantees success, as you've proven through your tech sales career. It's really encouraging, man. I feel encouraged, and I only got 2 more questions for you, and then we'll wrap this one up. Oh gosh, I think I mixed up tie this one off and wrap it up. And made a weird expression, but yeah, let's dive in these last 2 questions. What are recommended resources for folks to learn more as they try to improve their tech sales skill set? This could be thought leaders to follow on LinkedIn to flood their feed. It could be top sales books. It could be podcasts. I'd love to get your recommendations.
Yeah, so I would recommend 30 Minutes to President's Club has provided just A-list content for me. So shout out to those guys. I don't know if we could plug those guys in the show notes or whatever.
Yeah, hey, I mean, that's the thing is, man, you are the reason I watch them, and
yeah,
them all the time. So thank you. You not only did you get me one of the greatest mentors, but you also got me a podcast that I love and people who I share it with love. So great call out, and thank you.
Yeah, those guys are great. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I mean, it's just nothing but value. And they keep it like short and concise, like 30 minutes. Here's 30 minutes. Like this is perfect. But in terms of books, Qualified Sales Leader is one of them. It's one of the best books I've read related to sales in a long time. And for the SDRs, like people that are looking to get into SDRs, Jeb Blunt, he's the guy that believes in prospecting. So pick up the book Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blunt and just know that book was solely written on how to get a meeting. And some of that's changed. Like this is all changing so fast, but I think that's a really good book to really get a good mindset of what it takes to get a meeting. Because as we talked about earlier, it's really, really hard. And I would say just there's a lot of podcasts out there that you can listen to better understand, what this is like. And, if you do find that mentor and build that network, you could definitely ask, hey, like, what are you listening to? Like how can I break in? And you just have to have that like tenacity, that ambition, that approach, if you're trying to break into this, right? Because that's what the sales managers are looking for. And yeah, resources, I would say that is pretty much it. There's some other influencers that I can't think of right now that are on LinkedIn that's probably a good idea for you to follow because they produce some pretty good content. But I'd say that's pretty much it on that topic.
Yeah, I like the recommendation on Fanatical Prospecting, and I've heard really good things about that book. Now let's finish up with a big question I like to ask folks. What does it take to live a good life, a full life? Tech sales and the career is part of it. And feel free to take this where you may, but what really matters to you when it comes to living fully?
Yeah, I think a lot goes into that question. For me, it's not all about making tons of money, right? I just want to have a comfortable life, right? So, for me, it's more about community, like being a part of the Austin, Texas community and, helping people like do what they want to do. And to be able to do that, it's kind of like a pyramid. Like you have to be disciplined enough to get in a good fitness routine. You have to be disciplined enough to get in a good diet routine. And, that's gonna help you kind of blossom right into the other things in life. But I think also, travel is important. It's important to know what else is out there so you could put where you're living and your situation in perspective. So I think traveling is huge, but everyone has, passions and different things that they like and enjoy doing. And I would encourage them to do their passion projects and whatnot. I can't stress community enough. Right. Finding that community for me, it's Austin, Texas. It has been since the day I very first moved here, and staying plugged in and dialed in with what's going on in Austin, attending those events, and just showing up. There was some guy, I was at an open mic night like a month ago, and I was with Tom and his friend. I remember the advice he gave. He was just like, 90% of life is just showing up. And I was like, well, that's a bold statement, man, but it's kind of true. It's kind of true. So,
amen. And dude, that's what we did today. Let's end on that note, dude. Thank you for showing up, and thank you to the folks who are still here with us to the end. We got a couple folks. Thank you for showing up. Thank you to the people who will show up in the future that watch this video as it floats out in the YouTube sea. I can't even talk, but Jake, you're inspiring. You have a great underdog story. You made it happen. You broke into tech sales and you've moved up the ranks, and you're also creating content, right? So let's final wrap up, and then we'll close the books on this one. Is what else are you up to from like a content perspective and like building your brand?
Yeah, I think I'm at the early stages of identifying my product and my product market fit.
Yeah.
But I love creating. I love doing stuff like this, pre and post production. So I'm coming out with the Pushing Limits podcast, PUSCH limits. And that's going to be focused on, a lot of things, Austin. And I'm really just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks at this point. But that's kind of where I'm focused right now. And I think the other creative thing that I'm doing right now is open mic nights. It's very scary. It's very scary to get up on stage for 3 minutes and tell jokes, especially when you're walking on eggshells today. You don't know what's offensive or what's not offensive anymore. But I think getting up on stage and doing 3 minutes of comedy is very, very, I don't know, just awesome. I enjoy it. So we'll see where that takes me. And check out the Pushing Limits podcast. I think my first episode's tomorrow. And Chris, I'd like to have you at some point to come on as well. So
yeah, I look forward to that, man. And I'm going to have you on plenty more times. We're going to be collaborating. The rap video is coming out on Friday, and you're in it. And we're just getting started, man. So Tom Singer, thank you for going the distance with us. He said comedy is the hardest use of the spoken word, and I agree. And Tom has done a great job mastering that. I could tell you are too, man. And we should do an open mic night and maybe like kind of document it. And I might bomb, but it would be fun, man. So thank you.
Let's go live. Let's go live during your first open mic.
Yeah. Night. Oh God, live. Oh, that would be terrible. So, but hey guys, thank you for showing up. Keep showing up. Keep pushing your limits. And if you do that, your life is going to be bussin'. See what I did there? Let's go. Anyways, make sure to check out Jake's podcast when it comes out. I'll make sure to share it and link it in the video. Subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you like this, because the algorithm loves that, and we'll show this video to more people who could benefit from the message. To your success in tech sales and in life, happy selling and happy living. And I'll see you in the next one. I promise I won't be a black screen. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you.